What's up, guys? Brett Okamoto from ESPN, joined by former WEC, former UFC champion Dominick Cruz, who headlines this weekend's card against Marlon Cheeto Vera over there in San Diego. And Dom, I've been talking to you throughout a lot of your career, man. And I looked back, and you've been at this, your professional career, for 17 years. I'm sure a lot has changed over the course of that time. But what comes to mind when you think about preparing for a fight when you first got into this sport and now still going strong 17 years in?
Just how the things that I've had to transform in my life to keep elevating with the game, because the game's changed so much. I mean, it's the level of athletes in the sport now are at a different level than they've ever been, obviously. When I first started in the sport, it was illegal in all 52 states. You couldn't do it legally at all.
Yeah.
Now it's legal in every single state. So that alone is a huge difference. Not to mention, it went from Spike to Versus to Fox to ESPN, all the different TV networks, which exploded it in the way that the UFC has built the business. You got to respect the way that the business has been done with the UFC when you've been in it as long as I have. You have to respect how much they've grown worldwide and how they've done it, how the process they've used to do it as business owners. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. What about you though? Like just your mindset going from like a kid 17 years ago to now you're a man getting ready to headline a card. I mean, just when you're day to day in these camps, like what do you think is the biggest difference just for you?
Well, I mean, I've headlined many cards as 20, 25-year-old, 20-year-old. You know, I've headlined cards my whole career. Until recently, I haven't headlined cards. It's just been later in my career that I haven't headlined really. The last 2 3-round fights were the first 3-round fights I've had in most of my career.
Yeah.
So that's pretty different. Moving back into a 5-round fight again is very reminiscent. The body feels it. I feel good though, and I'm excited. I feel like I've just, right when you start to learn the martial arts, your body and your mind start to sync together. You're older, and that I feel like I understand where I'm at right now better than I ever have.
Did you have to be talked into doing a 5-round fight here, or is that something that you said yes to immediately?
No, you don't say yes to it immediately unless it's for a title. I mean, like I said, that's a new thing that the business model created, to where you make a 5-round fight, not a title fight. They do that so that they have more headliners for a card, so you can have more fights every single weekend and make them seem more important.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line of the business model. So it's fine to do it. Just gotta compensate for the 5 rounds. I don't want to fight an extra 10 minutes for the same pay I would for 3 rounds.
Yeah.
So that gets worked out, and that's up to me to figure out, and I have. So here we are.
Okay. How about the San Diego bit of it? When did you know immediately? Like, because I've heard you say, that the date is the most important thing. So when you were looking at a date that you wanted to fight on, when in that process did you find out like, hey, it's going to be San Diego?
I was blown away. Like, I feel like I just couldn't believe it. To be honest, I had no idea that it was going to be in San Diego. I picked that date because that's when my body was working. That's really, like I said, that's really what matters to me, because you want to make sure you're healthy. You want to make sure you're having the rounds in consistently, and then everything syncs up, and that's what happened. So the rounds were in, the body is healthy, and everything synced up. And then I was like, okay, this is the date. And they're like, okay, it's in San Diego. I'm like, whoa, what are the chances of that? So
Yeah.
here we are again. Like, it's pretty crazy. Last time I fought here was in the WEC. Jose Aldo was on the card with me.
Yeah.
And he fought one of my friends. And I fought Ian McCall.
Yeah.
And I don't remember how many years ago it was. It's been a long time now.
2009, dude. 13 years ago. And the same
Yeah,
day.
I think people don't know how long I've been doing this.
Yeah.
Because, I've been in and out with injuries, and there's a new fan base that's always growing. So I've been doing this as long as anybody.
Do you know who else was on that card? Because I was looking, obviously, to see when the last time he fought in San Diego.
Not anybody that I don't know who you're going to mention.
Jamie Varner and Donald Cerrone headlined. You had Benson Henderson fighting Anthony Njokuani. You had Jose Aldo. I didn't know that he fought a friend of yours. I didn't know that part.
Yeah, well, I think somebody pulled out against Aldo, and my friend stepped in.
Oh,
His name's
wow.
Rolando Perez.
Yeah. Uriah
And he's
Faber and
still
Jens
fighting in the
Pulver
MMA.
was on that card.
Man, I didn't know that either.
It's a stacked card.
It was a stat card. WEC was awesome. I mean, you got to remember when the WEC came over to the UFC, everybody goes, was it a big deal when it turned into the UFC? It's like, I don't think anybody knows it was the UFC. The UFC owned the WEC. And when the WEC merged with the UFC, pretty much every single champion in the WEC became a UFC champion immediately because they were so good. That's how good everybody was.
Yeah.
So the WEC was very stacked, always.
Yeah. I mean, I know that a lot of like the media guys and fans, I'm sure, that have been around for a long time, they remember the WEC days like really, really fondly. Do you guys do that? I mean, when you think about the favorite parts of your career, would WEC be right there at the top, or like what would be at the top?
It was a huge part of my career. I can't not think about it because so many of my fights were in the WEC. It'd be, imagine if I just acted like it didn't happen, half my career would be gone. It was actually a tough thing though, because I remember when the merger happened, it was almost like my career had just started. And I felt like I'd been doing it so long already that was kind of an exhausting thought.
Yeah.
But
That does have
here
to
we
be
are.
exhausting, I'm sure. That you've been doing it for a long time, that you've already established your best, and then there's a lot of people saying, who are these guys coming in the
Yes,
UFC?
that. We had a whole lot to prove.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you some people love fighting at home, and some people are like, this is a lot. It adds a lot to a process that's already a lot. Have you experienced that yet? Have you had the ticket requests coming in? Have you had like the extra media stuff coming in, or not too bad yet?
Extra media stuff, yes. But that's what you get. That's what you negotiate in your contract. Once you fight as a main eventer, you're also signing up for the media. You're signing up for all that, for these interviews right now. So you just got to kind of surrender to it. You get to surrender to it. If you try to resist it, you're just going to have a whole lot of hurt in your life. So you just surrender to it, do the best you can with it. And that's what I'm doing. It's quite an honor, to be main eventing and try to move into a place of gratitude so that you don't get too up against yourself. That's all you can do.
I get the sense though. I get the sense at this point in your career, if given an option of, do you want to headline a card, or do you want to be like third fight on the main card, 3-round fight, not as much media, you would probably pick the latter. Yeah, that's safe to say.
Well, yeah, I wanted to fight on a pay-per-view undercard again. Yeah. Like I'll be the main event on an undercard. I don't mind. Like a lot of people think it's disrespectful or something like that. Where I'm at, placement on a card for me personally does not matter because I'm a prize fighter. I'm here to fight for the prize. The prize is what I get at the end, not where I'm at on the card. That's the ego part of it. And that does not serve me in the fight. It doesn't really matter. It does not serve me in my life. It does not make me more money to be doing that. So for me, it's just, I could be on the undercard of a pay-per-view and be completely happy. 3 rounds? Are you kidding me? That's 10 minutes less fighting you do.
15 minutes of work sounds better than 25 minutes of work to me. I mean, that's
exactly. It's like going from a 40-hour work week to a 60-hour work week is what nobody knows in the camp. It's the camp that makes it different. The workload it triples. The workload triples. But I've done it so much that I know what it takes, and I'm here and I'm healthy and I'm ready to do it. So I'm excited about it now with where I'm at, because we're towards the end. So the hard part's done. The training camp where you can put the trust and the faith in what the outcome is in the end is there. So now I'm just, now it's hurry up and wait last few weeks.
What should I think when I hear guys say, because this difference of 5 rounds and 3 rounds comes up, especially like if guys haven't done it before. And they're like, I'm always training for 5 rounds. Even in a 3-round fight, I'm always training for 5 rounds. It sounds like you make specific changes to your camp, that you prepare different for a 5-round fight. How does the sport look at that? And did you think you're unique in the way you look at it?
I couldn't. It'd be an interpretation for me to really sit and pretend that I know what other people are thinking. I can only speak for myself. And for myself, fighting 3 rounds is much easier than fighting 5. I don't care what anybody else says. It just is. Like I don't have to do as many rounds sparring. Simple. It's simple. I spar a lot. So, you know, I go from 4 rounds to 8. You're telling me that doesn't make a difference on my body? It does.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll get to Cheeto here in a second, but I want kind of talking about San Diego and you last time you fought there was 2009. When did you move to San Diego, and why did you? What happened in your career early on that led you to San Diego?
Well, when I took a fight on 2 days' notice on a show called Total Combat, which is with my coach, Eric Del Ferro. He used to run a show called Total Combat out here. And I was preparing for a fight in Colorado at altitude at 155 pounds because 135 and 145 hadn't existed yet at this time in the sport.
Yeah.
So I was like already very small for that weight class, but I was just trying to pack on as much weight as I could. And I was walking around about 155 pounds. And because it was at altitude, I got myself in really good shape by taking all the precautions for that fight. And then the whole show got canceled 1 week out. And I had done so much work that I was kind of bummed out. And I started asking around if I could get another fight booked. And then this fight came on my lap on 2 days' notice at 145 pounds. So because I was big and I was in shape big for 145, and I was in shape for an altitude 5-round altitude fight, this was 10 pounds lighter, 3 rounds, but the guy was really good. He was a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He had just strangled Crazy Horse, who was a known name at the time, and I'm still a fan of him. So I was like, weighed the options, and I took it. Well, I ended up winning that fight. It was a very close, one of my hardest fights. Learned a lot of lessons in that one. And Eric, my coach, gave me a bonus at the end of that. I made $1,700 in that fight. And because I showed up with no cornerman by myself, he didn't have to fly anybody out. And I just, showed up ready to go. And so he's like, oh, he brought me back a couple times. And then he said, you don't have a manager. Every time you come out to fight out here, you got nobody with you. Do you need a manager? Do you need a coach? I said, yes, that's exactly why I'm coming out here. Because, I had people that were supporting me in Tucson, don't get me wrong, but they weren't a head coach. They weren't a head leader. They weren't the one they weren't coming out to corner me because they didn't have the money and I didn't have the money to put them there.
Yeah.
So I was on my own to an extent. I had a lot of support. Don't get me wrong. I had people that loved me that wanted to do what they could for me, and I lined people up, but I didn't have a leader. And Eric offered to be my leader, and so when he did, I came out, and then he got me a fight against Uriah Faber. I was 9-0 at that time, and I got the fight with Faber in the WEC, and he coached me for that for about 6 weeks, and then I lost that one, but that was the beginning of our relationship, and then I just never really left my leader, which was Eric Del Ferro. That's why I came out here, because I needed to get out of Tucson to start a career. I was going to school and working all these jobs in Tucson, but I had to make a decision. Was I going to keep going to school or was I going to fight?
Yeah.
And I chose to go with my heart in fighting, and it worked out.
I would say so. Yeah. And, hearing a story like that, some different guys have different reactions to fighting at home. Like, does it add a little bit? Like, does it make it a little more sweet that like that was a critical point in your life? Like you just said, that was a crossroads of like, were you going to pursue fighting? Were you going to try something else? And that you came to San Diego and made a career for yourself. Like, are you feeling that at all? Like representing San Diego? Like, do you have that relationship with the community?
I do. Yeah. I've been here. I lived here a long time. I'm technically, I do all my camps here and I have a home here, but I share my time in Las Vegas. I'm a Las Vegas resident now. I've been for over a year.
Yeah.
But I do all my camps here, like I said, and I represent San Diego when I fight. It's on my resume. I was actually born here, but moved to Tucson, Arizona to do all my school and stuff because my family didn't have much money and they relocated in Tucson to build up. My mom was a single mom, and that's where she moved to make it a little easier on her. And then I moved back here when I was 21 and then built my career. Been here ever since, fighting my career. So, yes, I'm representing San Diego 100%. And I've been one of the only champions San Diego's ever had, period. So I'm very proud of that.
Yeah. And it's a big fight, man, to not just headline in your hometown, but have a fight that means a lot, And when you look at Cheeto, to me, Cheeto was like a guy who was always very talented, of course, but his last fight seemed like a breakout fight. His last fight seemed like he exceeded my expectations. It felt like that the community kind of gave him that too, that he impressed everybody. Is that how did you look at his last fight against Rob Font?
I mean, he beat Rob Font. Rob Font's a stud. But I'm a fan of all these guys. And, you know, the old me might not have spoken the way I speak now because I've been through so many ups and downs. This is what I mean about the transformation of myself.
Mhm.
It's like I'm a fan of all these fighters now, all of them, everybody in my whole division. Whether they can understand that or not is beside the fact, you know. So I am a fan of Vera and what he's done. That was a big fight for him to win.
Mhm.
It's not easy to beat Rob Font. Rob Font kind of came in a little bit heavy though. And that shows me that he had a weight cut camp. And he might not have had a camp. And that means that he came in really heavy into that fight. And he probably spent most of the camp trying to keep his weight down and focused on that, which means that, you know, it was maybe a little bit off on the professionalism of how much he prepared for a guy like Cheeto. You got to take a guy like Cheeto very seriously, and I have. And that's it. You got to be very professional. And so, you know, Cheeto is going to show up his best, and I expect that. And I need that because if I'm going to keep winning in this division and keep moving up the ladder, he's going to have to show up for his best to prepare me for the next fight.
Mhm.
And that's what I want.
I think that's what you're going to get, man, because, you know, when you say, you're definitely at that point in your career where is it, you talk about how the sport's changing and these guys are getting better and the athletes are getting better, and you're also Dominick Cruz, so I think you get everybody's best effort. So I imagine that Cheeto Vera is going to come in at his best, without obviously giving away strategy or any of that. What do you think this fight is going to come down to? Is it just going to come down to, are you just a better fighter than Cheeto? Is it going to come down to what happens in like the later rounds or strategy, or like what do you think is kind of a key to this matchup between the number 5 guy and the number 8 guy in the division?
Honestly, for me, the key is being in the ground of creativity, freedom, and possibility, and not trying to figure out what's going to happen. Being willing to deal with the unknown. Win, lose, or draw, I'm in this for the freedom, the creativity, and the endless possibilities. And the more I try to attach to a win or a loss or a decision, or the more you trap yourself. You know, none of that matters. What matters is surrendering to the outcome and have the trust and faith that I've put the work in that I need to get the job done. And that takes care of any, you know, the natural fears that come over. You know, the state of survival is normal. It takes over when you're getting ready to move into a fight.
Mhm.
And the state of survival puts you into the mindset of more, I need better, and I need different.
Mhm.
And to kind of not battle, but to surrender to the fact that that's the human thing that's in us. It's human of me to feel that, and I am a human. I'm not a robot. So all I can do is have trust and faith in myself and what I've done in this 12-week camp, and my body and my instincts, and what I've done this far in the career. That it's going to carry me through whatever gets brought to me in that octagon, and be willing to die on that night. And I am. I'm happy with how I've lived my life. I'm happy with everything that I've created. And if I was to die on that night, would I be okay with that? Yes, I would. And that's okay with me. And so with that, now the creativity, the freedom, and the endless possibilities can take over, and I can just be with what is instead of trying to control it. You know, security is mostly a superstition. It does not exist in nature. And this is a natural thing that I'm moving into. It's what's been happening since the beginning of man: war, fighting, competing. So, you know, Helen Keller said that, and she was deaf and blind. So, what did she know that we didn't know? A lot.
Yeah, man. And you're not the first fighter to say that, obviously, but it's a real heavy thing. And like, did you have you always thought that way, or is that something like, is that something that came along kind of, is that like a
That's been learned over time. It's not always been that way. You learn that
you know,
it's a mindset to try to create, like I said, freedom. Because um, you know, Deepak Chopra said the known is nothing other than the prison of past conditioning. So let's say I knew what was going to happen at the end of this. Let's say the whole world knew for an answer what was going to happen at the end of this. What fun would life be if it was lived like
yeah, yeah,
that? It wouldn't be any fun. Nobody would be watching. You wouldn't be doing this interview because we'd already know the outcome.
yeah.
So that's fate. It's not real that we know anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not. So what's the point of trying to pretend I can control anything? or that there's something that's going to happen. What's the point of even discussing it, really?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's a good way to go into a fight. Embracing
Okay.
embracing that you are okay with anything that happens. I think that is it's got to be a very positive way to go into a fight.
It's not easy to think this way, but it's harder not to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. And it's just, I've had enough wins and losses now that I can look at all of this and kind of just be with what is.
Yeah.
It's going to be what it's going to be.
Yep. Yep. What you're talking about with the not knowing what's going to happen applies to the entire division. But when you look at the division, everybody's getting booked up. Aldo, Merab, Jan, and O'Malley. You got the title fight between Aljo and Sterling. Do you see a scenario in which, hey, you beat Cheeto, you look good doing it, that this could be your number one contender fight, that you could fight for a belt next? Do you see a scenario in which that could happen?
Yeah, I do see this as that. I mean, it's a 5-round main event. How is that not a title fight?
Mm-hmm.
In my book, that's a title fight. And Vera is that accolade of athlete, along with the other 4 people ranked above him. We're all world champions, realistically. It's just a matter of how the outcome happens on each of the competitions each night between us.
Yeah.
We're all that. We're all right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. I got to ask you about one thing, and it's obviously the title is always your focus. Fighting up in the rankings has been the focus your entire career. I did an interview with Frankie Edgar, and he did say that he wants to retire in Madison Square Garden, and he's never called out anybody, but he said that would be a really fun fight. When you heard that, like, Frankie Edgar's another legend of the sport. What was your reaction? Were you what's the word I'm looking for? The respect that he showed you, was it cool for you, or like did you put much focus on it? Obviously you're focusing on Cheeto. What did you think when Frankie said that?
Yeah, I'm obviously focused on Vera right now, but you can't not respect Frankie. I've done a lot of stuff with him. Like, we've done events together with
Sure.
the UFC, working for the military. We've been around each other our whole careers. We
Yeah.
did the photo thing where we were both champions at the same time. So it's always been nothing but respect between us. And I didn't see his call out as anything other.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really something I'm thinking about right now, if I'm being perfectly honest. But respect to Frankie. Thank you, I guess. I don't know what I'm supposed to say.
Flattered was the word I was looking for. Would you be flattered at all that he would want you to be his last fight?
Sure, but I think you gotta remember, I've been being called out by everybody. Vera's been calling me out for how long? Yeah. Everybody calls me out because I've been a world champion. So when you become a world champion, and multiple times I've been a world champion, and I defended the title multiple times, there's like a line that's been drawn where, like, I'm at a certain level and people want to compete against that level. And I've got a history and a background in this division, and I've got a history in the background in the sport. So would you rather fight somebody like that, or would you rather fight like somebody who doesn't, an up and comer that nobody knows, that has no history, that's never been a world champion, and that's extremely good still, with like 20 amateur fights and 5 pro fights, and actually like 25-0, and nobody knows it.
Yeah.
And you're facing that guy, or you're facing me, who's got the history and the career, and you can weigh that up against something, right?
Yeah.
So it's more of a business strategy than a flattery thing. And that's why people call me out. It's a business strategy. They want to pretend anything else. It's not that. It's just business.
For sure. For like, for you though, like just from a personal satisfaction type of thing, like fighting another guy who has done a lot in this sport in Madison Square Garden where you've never fought, like, does that appeal to you? Like, do you hear that and you're like, yeah, that would sound like fun. That would get me up. That would get me excited. Do you get those types of sentiments?
Well, when you're as present as I am right now, the only thing you're thinking about every day is beating Vera.
Yeah.
I'm just very present with that right now. I have to be. I get to be. What a step in my sport to be facing a guy like at that level right now. Yeah. Let's if you listen to Vera, he just wants to be heard. Just give him the time to be heard. He's the man. He's the favorite in this fight, right? He's the one that's supposed to beat me. He's screaming for people to pay attention to him. So give him the attention.
Yeah, as we should. We should give both of you guys the attention in this fight. One last thing for you. You win this fight. if you were to reclaim a title, I mean, you'd be a 3-time UFC champion, you'd be a WEC champion, and those wins, those championship wins, would span the course of like 13 years. I would say that you would have basically, we always talk about, the fighters all the time say, I want to be considered the best. I want to go down as the best. You would have set a precedent of the best bantamweight of all time that would be real hard to ever beat. Like as an analyst and as a guy who looks at the history of this sport, would you say the same thing? Like, are you on your way to doing something that is just like, it's never going to be taken over? You were going to be the best bantamweight in this sport for years and years and years and years.
I honestly can tell you I already believe that about myself, Brett. I really do believe that already. This is just another thing that I'm doing because this is what I choose. I can't say it enough. Like, to not compete, to not put myself in this vulnerable position would be the prison of past conditioning. I would already know the outcome. I already know what I am, right? But to move into this, I'm moving into freedom, creativity, and endless possibilities. Mm-hmm. And that's where I can create whatever I want. Let's see what can happen. I don't know. I'm just here, man.
That's pretty cool, man. Yeah. So you're still fighting, and the main reason you're fighting is because you get to go into a situation where you just have no idea what the outcome is going to be, and you can't really replicate that in any other path of life.
This is a gift to be in this platform and to vulnerably put myself in this position. Transformation is a public event. Yeah. That's what this is. And I don't think people, I'm a martial artist. I'm not a cage fighter. I'm not a fighter. I'm a martial artist. This is a lifelong trek for me. Somebody's been doing this for as long as you say I've been doing it. Does that sound like a fighter? Does that sound like a martial artist? This is what I am. This is what I be. And I've been grateful enough to have the platform to be able to use it to shift myself in so many different directions. I've been through, you go back to watching my interview with Ariel Helwani where I'm crying on myself about blowing out my knee. I was at a completely different mindset. I had to go through these things. All the injuries have been a gift for me because I know what it looks like when this thing's over. I know it's what retirement looks like. How many fighters are retiring and coming back because they don't know how to live life without competition? Yeah. I've lived for 6 years at my highest level without competition. I know what it looks like, and I'm very happy with my life. And I don't need a belt to be happy. It's just, I'm in the space of wanting to create on a platform where I'm putting myself in a vulnerable place to have everything taken from me. And that's where the endless possibilities, the freedom and the creativity can take place. That's why I'm here. That's what I'm doing this for. That's what I choose.
Yeah, that's a great answer, man. Very, very insightful stuff. We'll let you go. Thank you so much for the time as you're still preparing for this fight. We appreciate it, Dom, and best of luck, man. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, Brett.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.